It's a chilling thought. To enter the domain of a creature unchanged for millions of years. A true living fossil. I'm thinking of Anthony White, a marine biology student in California. He knew the risks, he understood the ocean, but on one fateful morning in 2014, he paddled out alone near a seal rookery, ignoring the warning signs, and a great white shark changed everything. The summer of 2014 brought perfect weather to Surf Beach, California. Sunshine filtered through the morning mist, painting golden patterns on the glassy ocean surface. Anthony White, 22, and his passion for surfing were exactly what you'd expect from a California marine biology student. The young man had been surfing for 8 years, and his friends described him as the perfect match of fearless adventure and deep respect for ocean life. Anthony was known for his infectious enthusiasm and tendency to seek out remote breaks, while his academic side was more methodical, always researching surf spots and ocean conditions before paddling out. He and his friends had spent weeks planning this solo dawn patrol session, and this morning adventure was meant to be the perfect combination of his two passions, surfing and marine biology. The college student had arrived at Surf Beach just as the sun was rising, spending his first hour checking conditions and waxing his board at the remote location. But Anthony had been restless, telling other early morning surfers that the real waves were beyond the crowded spots, despite the area being adjacent to a massive seal rookery at Point Conception. On that fateful morning, Anthony set out early, carrying his 6.2 shortboard and minimal safety gear. He had signed the beach access log, indicating he planned to surf the main break. But somewhere along the way, Anthony spotted what looked like perfect waves breaking further offshore. Despite the prominent warning signs about marine life in the area, Anthony paddled out about 150 yards from shore to position himself in the lineup. The area was beautiful, too beautiful to resist, with seals barking in the distance and crystal clear water revealing the sandy bottom below. While setting up for the perfect wave, Anthony suddenly noticed something that should have alarmed him. The water was unusually quiet, with no other surfers in sight, and the seals had stopped their constant chatter. But he was so focused on catching the wave of the day that Anthony ignored these warning signs. Finally, Anthony had positioned himself perfectly in the lineup and was sitting on his board, legs dangling in the water. Then suddenly, a terrifying silence fell over the ocean. Out of nowhere, there it was. A massive great white shark emerging from the depths, perhaps 20 feet below where Anthony was sitting. What Anthony didn't realize was that he had entered the domain of one of nature's most efficient predators. Great whites are living fossils that have remained virtually unchanged for millions of years. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are perfectly designed for explosive attacks. These apex predators can detect blood from up to 500 yards away and sense the electrical impulses of a beating heart from several meters distance. When hunting, great whites approach from the depths in explosive bursts of speed exceeding 35 miles per hour, using the element of surprise to deliver devastating attacks with bite forces reaching up to 4,000 pounds per square inch. Anthony reacted instantly, but there was nowhere to run. The massive predator struck from directly below, covering the distance between them in a split second. Anthony managed to see the shark's massive form just before impact. But the attack came with such explosive force that both he and his surfboard were launched into the air. The sound of Anthony's screams cut through the morning silence as the shark's jaws clamped down on his torso. He fought desperately, punching at the predator's snout as it held him in its powerful grip, the massive head shaking violently as razor-sharp teeth sliced through flesh and bone. The great white released Anthony after several seconds, typical behavior for these predators when encountering unfamiliar prey. But the damage was already catastrophic. Blood immediately began clouding the pristine water as Anthony, despite his severe injuries, began paddling frantically toward shore on his damaged board. The shark circled below, following the blood trail, but maintaining its distance, waiting to see if this strange prey would weaken enough to approach safely. Anthony managed to cover nearly half the distance to shore, his movements becoming weaker and more erratic as blood loss and shock overwhelmed his system. A jogger on the beach heard Anthony's desperate screams and immediately called for help. But the remote location meant rescue was still minutes away. By the time lifeguards arrived, Anthony had disappeared beneath the surface, the ocean swallowing him whole. 2 hours later, Anthony's mangled surfboard washed ashore, bearing the unmistakable crescent-shaped bite marks of a great white shark. The massive gouges told the story of an encounter with one of nature's most efficient predators. Anthony's body was never recovered despite extensive search efforts. The university established a memorial scholarship in his name, and Surf Beach was temporarily closed while marine biologists studied great white activity in the area. The attack led to enhanced warning systems and additional safety briefings for surfers. As the sun set over the California coastline, the memory of Anthony White served as a stark reminder. I've spent years studying the ocean's delicate balance, but some stories still send a chill down my spine. The story of David Walter is one of them. He was a young charter captain in Galveston Bay, Texas, full of the American dream. On a beautiful morning in September 2015, that dream turned into a nightmare. David had taken a group of tourists out for a bachelor party, promising them a great day of fishing. And for a while it was. They were pulling in red snapper and speckled trout, the cooler filling up with their catch. David expertly navigated to his favorite spot, a mile offshore where the depth dropped to about 25 feet, attracting bait fish and the predators that hunt them. Then disaster struck. The boat's engine died, leaving them drifting in the current. A clogged fuel filter, a simple fix, but the anchor began to drag. David, always safety conscious, knew he had to act fast. He stripped down and dove overboard to reset the anchor, hoping to stabilize the boat while he fixed the engine. He didn't know he was entering the hunting grounds of a bull shark. These sharks are incredibly adaptable, comfortable in both saltwater and freshwater. They can swim far up rivers and into lakes where other sharks can't survive. This means they can appear almost anywhere. And they're aggressive, responsible for more unprovoked attacks on humans than almost any other shark species. The 7-foot bull shark had been drawn to the area by the chum slick from David's successful charter. Its acute sensors detected the electrical fields from David's rapidly beating heart and the scent of blood. What happened next was shockingly fast. David never saw the shark coming through the murky water. It struck from behind, its massive jaws clamping down on his leg before immediately releasing and circling for another attack. David's clients heard his scream through the water. He fought desperately to reach the surface, but the bull shark continued its relentless assault, each bite tearing away more flesh. Once committed, bull sharks rarely give up. The water became a churning mass of blood. David's clients watched in horror. They screamed for help and radioed the Coast Guard. But David had already disappeared beneath the surface, overwhelmed by the bull shark's attack. The Coast Guard arrived nearly an hour later, finding only David's torn shorts floating in blood-stained water. The shark had vanished into the murky depths, leaving behind traumatic memories. There's a story they tell in boating safety courses along the Texas coast. It's a cautionary tale about a charter business that died along with its owner, a man named David. His body was never recovered after he went out to sea. The incident led to new safety protocols, ones that required emergency beacons and backup communication systems. But while the Gulf's bull sharks hunt in murky shallows, thousands of miles away in Hawaii, another predator was about to show why it's earned the most terrifying nickname in the ocean. This time, the attack would happen under cover of darkness, where even paradise becomes a hunting ground. April 22nd, 2016 brought perfect conditions to the remote coastline near Hana, Maui. A gentle trade wind rustled through the palm trees as the sun painted the sky in brilliant tropical colors. 24-year-old Christian Smith couldn't have asked for better conditions for his solo fishing adventure at one of his secret spots along Maui's untouched coastline. Christian embodied the laid-back Hawaiian lifestyle that drew so many to the islands. With his easy smile and encyclopedic knowledge of hidden fishing spots, he had become a local favorite at the surf shop where he worked. Friends described him as fearless and independent, always venturing to remote locations that other anglers avoided, constantly searching for the perfect fishing experience that only the islands could provide. That evening, Christian loaded his truck with heavy tackle, designed for the large predatory fish that hunted Hawaiian waters after dark. The location he'd chosen was breathtakingly beautiful, but completely isolated. A secluded beach accessible only by a rough dirt road winding through dense tropical vegetation. Christian arrived just as darkness was settling over the ocean. The spot was perfect. A protected cove with deep water close to shore, and a coral reef that attracted schools of bait fish during night hours. He set up his gear methodically, rigging the heavy equipment he'd need for the monsters that prowled these waters after sunset. As Christian waded into about 6 feet of crystal clear water to cast beyond the reef break, everything seemed perfect. The water was so clear he could see the white sand bottom, even in starlight, and he'd already landed 2 nice fish when disaster struck. Moving through the water to reposition for a better cast, Christian's foot slipped on wet volcanic rock. He fell hard against sharp coral formations, opening a deep gash on his leg. Blood immediately began streaming into the pristine water around him. Local Hawaiian fishermen had warned about increased predator activity during night hours, but Christian had fished these waters countless times. What he didn't know was that the remote location had become a hunting ground for one of the ocean's most dangerous predators. As Christian tried to assess his injury in the dim light, he realized the cut was deeper than expected. His splashing and the metallic scent of blood created the perfect storm of stimuli that trigger a predator's hunting instincts. Unknown to Christian, he had attracted the attention of Hawaii's apex predator. Tiger sharks are perfectly adapted for nighttime hunting in both shallow and deep waters, earning the nickname wastebasket of the sea, because they'll eat virtually anything. I once read that their stomachs have contained license plates, tires, and even other sharks. The shark maintained its grip while striking with its powerful tail, creating a whirlpool of violence. What makes tiger shark attacks particularly horrific is their feeding behavior. Once they taste blood, they enter a feeding frenzy, biting repeatedly until prey stops moving. Christian fought desperately, but the predator's grip was unbreakable, and each movement only intensified the attack. I'll never forget the story of Christian, a surfer whose screams echoed across the empty Hawaiian coastline, unheard. A tiger shark, with its indiscriminate appetite, had made escape impossible. When morning came, they found his truck and fishing gear, but Christian was gone, claimed by the waters he loved. The search was massive, helicopters and hundreds of volunteers, but it took 4 days to find his body, 8 miles down the beach. The Hawaiian community held a traditional blessing, and his surf shop colleagues started a memorial fund for ocean safety education. But what happened to Christian wasn't unique. Off the rugged northern California coast, the same species that took Anthony White was about to show that even professional watermen who've spent years in those waters are never truly safe. November 8th, 2017, dawned crisp and autumnal at Fort Ross, Northern California. The morning fog lifted, revealing a dramatic rocky coastline where Pacific swells crashed against ancient sea stacks. For Ryan Walsh, a 29-year-old abalone diver, the weather couldn't have been better. Calm seas and good visibility promised a profitable day harvesting those prized mollusks. Ryan was the embodiment of a dangerous profession. His weathered hands and sun-damaged face told the story of 6 years spent in frigid Pacific waters, free diving to depths that would terrify recreational divers. Friends described him as methodical and safety-conscious, but also driven by an obsessive pursuit of the perfect abalone beds hidden in the rocky depths. That morning, Ryan launched his small boat with his dive partner Marcus, a younger diver who looked up to Ryan as a mentor. They'd worked together for 3 seasons, developing a wordless communication born of shared danger in one of California's most hazardous occupations. Ryan chose a productive rocky reef in 25 feet of water. The location was challenging, strong currents, kelp forests, and the ever-present danger of entanglement in abandoned fishing nets littering the bottom. As Ryan suited up in his thick wetsuit, he felt the familiar mixture of excitement and apprehension. The water temperature was a bone-chilling 55 degrees. But Ryan had built a tolerance over years of expo. His dive bag contained an abalone iron, measuring gauge, and collection bag, the tools of his trade. The first few dives went perfectly. Ryan descended through the kelp canopy to the rocky bottom, where clusters of red abalone clung like living jewels. His experienced eye identified legal specimens, and his practiced hands pried them loose with surgical precision. But on his seventh dive, disaster struck. Working to free a particularly large abalone, Ryan's fin became entangled in abandoned fishing nets. The nearly invisible monofilament wrapped around his leg like a spider's web, holding him against the rocky bottom as his air supply ran dangerously low. After a desperate struggle, Ryan managed to cut through enough netting to break free. Lungs burning, he made an emergency ascent, fighting through the kelp toward the sunlight. When he finally surfaced, he was exhausted, disoriented, and dangerously far from his boat. What Ryan didn't realize was that his distressed movements had attracted the attention of California's apex predator. Great whites, living fossils that have patrolled these waters for millions of years. Perfectly adapted to hunt in the kelp forests where seals and sea lions congregate, these massive sharks typically reach 12 to 16 feet and can weigh over 3,000 pounds. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are capable of explosive bursts exceeding 35 miles per hour. Their incredible sensory system allows them to detect electrical fields from several meters away and track blood trails from 500 yards. During autumn, mature great whites patrol northern California in greater numbers, following the migration patterns of their preferred prey. These sharks are incredibly intelligent, capable of learning and adapting hunting strategies, making them unpredictable and extremely dangerous to humans who venture into their territory. Marcus, watching from 300 yards away, immediately recognized something was wrong. Ryan floated motionless at the surface, clearly in distress. Marcus started the engine and raced toward his partner, but the distance seemed impossibly far. The 13-foot great white had been patrolling the kelp beds when it detected Ryan's emergency ascent. The shark's acute sensors picked up the electrical impulses from his rapidly beating heart, the scent of abalone in his collection bag, and the erratic movements of a creature in distress. All triggers activating predatory instincts. Ryan never saw the attack coming. The great white struck from below with devastating force, massive jaws clamping down on his torso with a bite force reaching 4,000 pounds per square inch, slicing through the wetsuit into vital organs. The shark's initial bite was exploratory, typical great white behavior with unfamiliar prey, but the damage was already catastrophic. The predator released Ryan and circled back, following the blow. I'll never forget the story of Ryan. He died from massive blood loss just 20 minutes after a shark attack. The Coast Guard helicopter arrived 45 minutes too late, and the shockwaves from his death spread quickly through California's small abalone diving community. New safety regulations were implemented, and his partner, Marcus, became a dive safety instructor. The beds at Fort Ross were temporarily closed while biologists studied great white activity. But while those great whites patrolled the kelp forests of northern California, hundreds of miles south in Florida's warm waters, The same aggressive species that claimed David Walter was about to turn a spearfishing competition into a feeding frenzy. This time, the attack would unfold in crystal clear water. Every horrific detail would be visible. August 14th, 2013, dawned with perfect conditions at Jupiter Inlet, Florida. The morning sun sparkled on the emerald Atlantic waters, gentle swells creating ideal visibility for the annual South Florida spearfishing tournament. Alex Paul, 33, couldn't have asked for better conditions for one of the region's most prestigious underwater hunting competitions. Alex embodied the passionate dedication of Florida's spearfishing community. A construction foreman from Miami, he spent weekends free diving in crystal clear waters, honing his breath-holding abilities and perfecting his aim with spear guns. Though not professional, his natural athleticism and years of experience earned him respect among the tight-knit fraternity. That morning, Alex joined 40 competitors at the tournament briefing. Target species included cobia, kingfish, and grouper, prized game fish commanding high point values. Alex had scouted extensively and identified promising spots where large fish were likely to be found. Competition began at sunrise, with boats spreading across the designated area. Alex and his dive buddy Carlos headed to a productive reef in 30 feet of water, where bait fish schools attracted larger predatory species. The water was exceptionally clear, with 80-foot visibility, perfect for spotting and stalking quarries. For 2 hours, Alex had moderate success with smaller fish, contributing to his score. But as the morning progressed, he became focused on finding a trophy fish for top prizes. Then he spotted a massive cobia cruising the reef edge. Alex knew he'd found his target. The cobia was magnificent, easily 50 pounds, and worth maximum tournament points. Alex hyperventilated to extend his bottom time, then dove to intercept the fish's path. His shot was perfect, striking just behind the gills, but the wounded fish immediately took off for deeper water. Caught up in the excitement over such a prize specimen, Alex became separated from Carlos and the other divers, finding himself alone in an isolated reef section. The wounded cobia's struggle created a significant blood trail as Alex fought to control the powerful fish. When Alex finally surfaced with his prize, he was bleeding from cuts caused by sharp fins and exhausted from the underwater battle. The combination of fish blood and human blood, along with the continued struggles of the dying cobia, created the perfect stimuli, triggering the predatory instincts of every shark in the vicinity. What Alex didn't realize was that he had attracted one of Florida's most dangerous predators, the bull shark. Bull sharks are perfectly adapted to the state's warm coastal waters, possessing a remarkable adaptations that allows them to survive in both saltwater and freshwater. These powerful hunters typically reach 6 to 8 feet and have specialized kidneys that regulate salt content in their blood, enabling them to appear anywhere from the open ocean to golf course ponds miles inland. Their incredible sensory system allows them to detect vibrations from struggling fish hundreds of yards away and sense electrical fields from several meters distance. Unlike other shark species that may be more cautious around humans, bull sharks are known for their bold, direct approach to potential food sources, often competing directly with spear fishermen for their catch. Their aggressive nature and opportunistic feeding behavior, combined with their ability to strike repeatedly rather than bite once and retreat, makes them one of the most feared predators in American waters. The 7-foot bull shark had been patrolling the reef when the scent of blood reached its nostrils from hundreds of yards away. The predator's acute senses detected the electrical fields generated by both the struggling fish and Alex's rapidly beating heart. Alex saw the shark approaching and tried releasing his catch, hoping to distract the predator with the wounded cobia. But bull sharks are opportunistic feeders with insatiable appetites, and multiple potential prey items only intensified their aggressive behavior. Instead of taking the offered, the water turned crimson so quickly. It was a shocking end to a life, and it forced a reckoning within the spearfishing community. The bull shark struck with terrible force, clamping its massive jaws onto Alex's leg. Major blood vessels were severed. The shark's multiple strikes caused massive tissue damage. Alex fought back, punching at the shark's snout, trying to reach his dive knife. But the bull shark continued its assault with relentless determination, striking again and again. Divers, alerted by the commotion and the spreading slick of blood, raced toward Alex's location. They found him floating unconscious, his spear gun and the wounded cobia drifting nearby. The bull shark had vanished, leaving only the devastating evidence of its attack. Despite immediate first aid and a Coast Guard helicopter evacuation, Alex died from massive blood loss during the 40-minute flight to the trauma center. The tournament was cancelled. The spearfishing community mourned one of their most respected members. But Alex's death, as tragic as it was, did lead to enhanced safety protocols in tournaments. There were new requirements for closer proximity to dive buddies. Organizers began providing emergency response training. The association even established a memorial fund promoting safer diving practices. I suppose that's the only solace one can find in such a tragedy.